David Harper, Associate Editor from the Eisner-nominated MultiversityComics.com.
My name is Brian Salvatore, and I am an Associate Editor at Multiversity.
My name is Walt Richardson. I am an editor in exile for Multiversity.
My name is Vince Ostrowski. I'm a staff writer at Multiversity.
I'm Zachary Wilkerson. I'm a staff writer at Multiversity.
My name is Mike Romeo. I am a podcaster and columnist for Multiversity.
I'm Greg Natasevich. I'm a podcaster and columnist for Multiversity.
This is James Johnston, Multiversity Comics, staff writer.
My name is David Tennyson. I'm a staff writer at Multiversity Comics.
My name's Brandon Burpee. I'm the co-host of Four Color News and Brews.
My name is Drew Bradley. I'm a columnist best known for Minding Mind Management.
I'm Mark Tweedale. I've been working on the site for the past year now, doing Hell Notes.
My name is Matt. I've been writing for Multiversity since August 2013.
I'm Chad Bowers. I've been with Multiversity since about 2012.
I've been with the site for 5 years.
I've been a part of the site since August of 2011.
Been with the site off and on for about a little bit over 4 years at this point.
I've been with the website for almost 3 years now.
I've been doing so since November 2011, so that's like almost 3 years, we'll say.
Been with the site either 7 months or 2.5 years, depending on how you decide to calculate that.
I've been here for about 2 years now.
I've been with the website for 5 years. It's been a swell time.
Why do I love comics? Because they're awesome.
I feel like comic books can do things that no other medium can do.
Really, the only limitations to the storytelling are the imagination of the writer and the artist.
It's said that they have an unlimited special effects budget. They do things that movies and television shows can never do.
You watch a movie and the restrictions are budget, and you watch TV and the restrictions are, they can't do everything on TV, but with a comic you can do anything. The only restriction is imagination. The only restriction is what the writer and artist can come up with and how they can tell the story.
The reason I love this book so much is it's this fantastic, sprawling adventure, but it was only touched by one pair of hands. If you were doing this kind of thing as a film, thousands of people would have to touch it, but as a comic book, a single person can make this, and that's what I love about comics.
You can do the most fantastic things with just a stroke of a pen or a brush or a pencil, and tell really high-thinking, intellectual comic stories, I guess.
You read a book, your imagination is the ultimate driver of what you see, and that's wonderful. But when you're reading a comic, you not only get to have the imagination of putting the sequential art together into movement, but you also have an artist's interpretation of the words that the writer wrote. So it's really a collaborative medium between the artist and the writer and the reader, and I think that's really unique and very cool.
Intimacy between the author and the reader, you can see their very personal pen strokes on the page, and that to me is just some kind of magic that I can never seem to recover from.
All these writers, all these artists, all these editors, all these colorists, all these letters, all these inkers come together and they build a whole entire universe. They built multiple universes, a multiversity, if you will.
They combine the visuals you get with fine art with the words and ideas and language that you get with prose. They also deal with cinema's use of juxtaposition and montage to blend all these elements together to get this third entity which is greater than everything that went into it.
I love storytelling of all types, but comics are my favorite because they're the only way I can get serialized literature. No matter how fast I read, I only get 22 pages a month, and that means comics gives writers much greater control over the pacing of the story than other types of prose.
They can create these worlds of fantasy and sci-fi and heroism, real worlds, but so unreal at the same time on a page drawn by someone, and make you care about them.
One of the reasons I love comics, and maybe the most important reason for me that I love comics, is that I love that comics never have to end. Superman, Captain America, Daredevil, those guys don't really have an end in sight. I love the endless possibility of the endless narrative of comics.
Things like Sandman, Invisibles are so much larger than what's on the page that it can't help but change your life.
In the past 5 years, there have certainly been plenty of major changes. DC has really lost the momentum that they had in the late 90s, but I don't think that's what Matt wants me to say.
Well, the biggest change has definitely been just the multimedia growth outside of the comics themselves, the movies, the TV shows now, video games. Comics as an industry are bigger than they ever have been before.
The rise of social media in the way that it unites the comic fandom and community, both among the creators and among the fans, it really helps sort of close the gap.
I think that the biggest thing that's changed in the industry over the past 5 years is just the effect that social media has had, especially Twitter and Tumblr.
When you look at things like Tumblr and self-published comics and the zines that are happening out there, you're seeing this group of cartoonists, of artists, of illustrators coming up that really probably have no interest in drawing Spider-Man or Batman, Wolverine.
Books are made or broken by either their creator's social media presence or the fan response, and that's for better or worse.
I think that once they really come into their own and they're the ones really in control of this industry, we're going to start having some really interesting things happening.
The biggest change I've noticed in comics in the past 5 years has been the attitude towards digital comics. 5 years ago, at least to me, it seemed that the attitude was very negative. Now it seems to have gone the other way, where a vast majority of it is very positive, and I really like that. I love how enthusiastic the industry has become about digital comics.
You know, I live in a place that has 2 comic book shops, but if you lived in a town that didn't have comic book shops, if you had an iPad and an internet connection, you could get comics. And that's something you wouldn't be able to do before.
In terms of the book itself, the biggest change has probably just been almost the rise of Image and the creator-owned stuff that is now getting as much and, if not more, attention than your regular DC Marvel stuff.
The creator-owned boom of the fact that you have not just newer creators like Frank Barbieri and Chris Mooneyham doing 5 Ghosts, you have like noted superstar creators like Ed Brubaker and Matt Fraction telling the stories they want to tell, and isn't that what we want? We want people to tell the stories they want to tell.
Comics have always been diverse, maybe not in the mainstream sense, but there have always been different kinds of comics. But I think that we're seeing more overlap in the readership. Marvel fans, DC fans, we're seeing these people start to, now they're reading Chew, now they're reading Saga, now they're reading other Image books. As Eric Stevenson said, a big 3 isn't necessarily better than a big 2, but baby steps, I guess.
You look at how comics were before kind of even 2012, where the explosion with the Avengers happened, and it was a lot of white guys.
It used to be that the loudest guys in the room were dudes who looked like me.
A lot of white guys.
I like the idea that I am not the only guy reading comics anymore, and guys like me aren't the only guys reading comics anymore.
What we're seeing now is women, people of colour, people of different sexualities really embrace comics as something that they love and really say, no, we're here too. We're here too, we want comics to reflect the fact that we're here, and that's, I think, a great change.
Every fan has a place there. Look at things like the Carol Corps and just the outgrowth from that, and lots of different things I think that really make a beautiful, beautiful fan community that I really don't think we've seen before, or certainly not in the modern age of comics. I think that's amazing.
I think 5 years from now, the comics industry is going to be even more digital than it is now. You're going to see a lot more people reading on even their phones. I think the phone is going to be the next real spot for people to read, not the tablet, but the smartphone.
In 5 years, I think the industry is going to be primarily digital based, as everyone is getting iPads and other tablets. It seems like the companies are putting a lot of emphasis on that.
I think that stores are going to continue to be strong, especially stores that know how to cater to their clientele and can create a pleasurable experience. I compare it to music stores. There are still record stores out there, but the only ones that are out there are the ones that have figured out how to please their specific audience. You don't see the Sam Goody's anymore, or the Record Towns, whatever those big chains were.
The digital marketplace, it isn't a comic shop, and we keep on seeing people trying to approach it like that. It's just like, going to the comic shop. But it's not. I think that we need to embrace the more unique aspects of the digital marketplace and the digital medium.
I think in the next 5 years, we're really going to see the ramifications of DC's 5 years later.
Comics are on an upswing in two different ways. I think they're an upswing creatively, and I think they're on an upswing in terms of sales.
We are in, not even really arguably, I don't really think you can argue that this isn't the golden age of comics. This is the best comics have ever been. We've never had more comics of as high a quality as what we have right now.
I think because the creative is so great, and because people are starting to adopt books like Saga outside of the standard readership, I think you're getting new readers, and I think that that's going to continue to grow.
I think, you know, as we move forward, all of that stuff is going to come together, and we're going to get, you know, more comics and better comics, and we are going to win the comic book lottery.
I also think there's going to be a lot more creative freedom in books, but we're really looking forward to that 5 years later thing.
You know, it's a difficult thing to say what is the one book that any comic fan should absolutely read, you know, because stuff like that's going to depend on taste, on preference, experience even, you know, a person's life and what they look for in story and fiction. I think that if I had to pin down one thing that anyone who says that they're a comics fan should read, it would be the first volume of the Eisner Laird Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles stuff. There's something in those stories that's going to speak to the majority of comics fans.
I would recommend Calvin and Hobbes. This is what I grew up on right here. This is why I am the comic fan I am today.
This is Calvin and Hobbes by Bill Watterson. It was written from 1985 to 1995. It's a fantastic series, and I honestly believe that somewhere in this collection there is at least one strip for every single person on the planet that they will absolutely love.
I'm gonna say Eisner Laird's Ninja Turtles for anybody. End the story. I don't care what anyone else says.
Just Miss Bone is probably the most accessible comic of all time. It is a bit of a fairy tale, but it is very genre-proof. It's got heroism in it, it's got romance in it, it's got action, it's got adventure, it's got characters who appeal to the young, old alike, male, female. It's got everything.
Planetary by Warren Ellis and John Cassaday. I do believe that book encompasses the spirit of comic books better than possibly any other book that I've ever read.
I would offer up Morning Glories number 16 by Nick Spencer and Joe Eisner. Why? Because I'm in the issue waterboarding a teenager. I'm serious, it was great. I don't think they liked it so much.
If I could recommend just one comic for folks out there to read, it would be Starman by James Robinson, Tony Harris, and Peter Snapeyer. I think it is a perfect example of a superhero comic that is done right. It's smart, it's funny, it's heartbreaking. It's not just guys in spandex punching each other. Although there is a little bit of that too.
Who is the best character in all of comic books? Well, I think the answer is very obvious.
There's a lot of competition for the best character in comics, but my favorite one has to be the Silver Surfer. His tragic origin and constant loneliness has made for some compelling epics, especially in the hands of Lee, Englehart, Starlin, and Mars.
My favorite character is Doll Man. He's swell.
It's got to be Captain Marvel. Carol Danvers is Captain Marvel, which anyone who knows me knows I'd say that, honestly. But, you know, I can't help it. You know, I've seen that character change lives. It's changed my life. It's led me to this, in a way. And, you know, he's great.
The best character in comics is Chip Zdarsky, and you all should know why already.
If I could take one comic book character out on a night of the town, just go out just the two of us and have a great time, maybe have some drinks, meet some ladies. Nope, don't want to do that part. Married. I was just kidding you. I would take the Watcher out. Why the Watcher, you say? Because he's about to die. Not only is he gonna die, they're taking both of his eyes. If anybody deserves a night out on the town, it's that man, or, you know, whatever he is.
Tony Stark. And I know that's kind of insensitive because apparently, you know, he once had a drinking problem. But at the same time, he has a good time. He's super rich. We could totally fly around everywhere. Maybe in Iron Man suits. He doesn't have to drink. He could introduce me to all kinds of cool people. I mean, he'd be the best. Whew! I would love hanging out with Tony Stark.
I'd probably risk it all and go out with Ike for Morning Glories. Probably be dangerous. I'd probably vomit a lot, and I'd probably had my back stabbed multiple times along the way, but hey, you could at least say it was an experience like none other.
The Young Avengers team, I'm still really upset that my social life isn't like theirs.
Hello, my name is Matthew Malikoff. I'm the editor-in-chief of Multiversity Comics. And from all of us here at the website, we want to thank you for reading us for 5 years, because that's crazy. So thank you.
Cheers.
Good job, guys.
Blah.